Welcome to the newest episode of Weather or Not. We have your nature in the news stories, including how climate change is affecting fish in the Pacific Islands and a new weather satellite being launched. Andy will have your weekend forecast, and Colby has a feature on aviation and weather. Don't go anywhere. Weather or Not starts right now. Welcome to this week's episode of Weather or Not. I'm your host, Kristy Steward.
And I'm your forecaster, Andy Moffitt.
Well, Andy, we started off last weekend very cold. Will this weekend look anything like last weekend did?
We definitely started last weekend very cold indeed. Saturday, we broke the low temperature record. We hit 15 degrees. Luckily, we won't be nearly that cold this Saturday. It does look like a chance of some rain showers here and there Saturday, and maybe even a snow shower Sunday, but nowhere near as cold.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about that in just a few moments, but first, here's Nature in the News. The single most important source of water in the high plains in the Midwest is drying up. The Ogallala Aquifer provides nearly all of the water for residential, industrial, and agricultural use across Colorado, Wyoming, Kansas, Nebraska, New Mexico, Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Texas. In the past 60 years, its water levels have declined twice as fast as they have in the previous 60 years. Many streams that are part of the 175,000 square mile aquifer are drying up. The aquifer lost 10.7 million acre-feet of storage in the span of 2 years. Farmers and ranchers rely on this water supply to boost production and survive during droughts. They're worried there won't be enough water for the livestock and crops, which make up 1/5 of the United States food production. At the current rate, most of the aquifer will be lost by 2060. Even if irrigation stops immediately, it would take hundreds of years for the aquifer to refill from the precipitation on the high plains.
A new study suggests that many of California's birds are adapting to rising temperatures by breeding earlier than they did a century ago. A comparison of nesting data recorded in the early 1900s with similar data today for more than 200 species of California birds shows that overall they are breeding 5 to 12 days earlier than they did 75 to 100 years ago. By nesting a week or 10 days earlier, birds are avoiding some of the negative effects of climate warming, Bessinger, a researcher on the project, said. Bessinger and his colleagues focused on bird data, looking at the shift in nest timing for 202 species across most of Northern California. To help understand the relationship between temperature and nesting, the researchers also accessed data from 47,000 monitored bird nests across North America.
Some exciting news in the weather community. A new next-generation weather satellite, JPSS-1, the first of 4 satellites to be put into orbit in the Joint Polar Satellite System, will be launched as soon as conditions become optimal. It was set to launch Tuesday and then rescheduled for Wednesday, but technical difficulties and high upper-level winds delayed both launches. The JPSS-1 will be renamed to NOAA-20 once it becomes operational in 2018. This polar orbiting satellite will orbit the Earth from pole to pole 14 times a day, providing meteorologists with high-resolution observations of atmospheric temperature and moisture, sea surface temperature, ocean color, sea ice cover, volcanic ash, and fire detection from around the world. These improved observations will enhance weather prediction computer models, which will in turn help meteorologists provide a more accurate 7-day forecast. The JPSS-1 will also help scientists with long-term climate studies by collecting high vertical resolution temperature and water vapor information and detecting greenhouse gases.
Many Pacific Island nations will lose 50 to 80% of marine species in their waters by the end of the 21st century if climate change continues unchecked, finds a new Nippon Foundation study. This area of the ocean is projected to be the most severely impacted by aspects of climate change. Under climate change, the Pacific Islands region is projected to become warmer, less oxygenated, more acidic, and have lower production of plankton that form the base of oceanic food webs, said lead author Rebecca Ash. The Pacific Islands region is the warmest of the global ocean. It's also an area where there is less seasonal variability. It more or less feels like summer all year. Because there are no drastic seasons, the animals in the tropical Pacific may find changing conditions to be more of a shock, since no organisms living in the ocean today would have time to adapt to these warmer conditions. Many will either go extinct or migrate away from the western Pacific, leaving this area with much lower biodiversity. And thank you for joining me here with your Central Pennsylvania forecast. We'll start the weekend dry, but then quickly get wet as we head into Saturday. We can take a look at that right here. Here, Friday, just some clouds. We might even have some breaks in the clouds, but as we head into the day on Saturday, we have this large area of rain moving into the area. This will affect the football game. I'll have more on that in a second. And then as we go rest of the day on Saturday, too, we'll be dealing with this rain for most of the day. And on Sunday, we have a chance for some lake effect, and if you're wondering what exactly causes this, you have to have an area of cold air, and you have to have the winds coming the right direction off the lake. And when you get the winds coming off the lake, you can get these bands of snow that sets up. Highest accumulations will be right along the coast, but as we can see, as we had in the past, you might get some showers of snow and rain possible here in the State College area. First, though, your Friday forecast, mostly sunny skies, especially in the morning, becoming more cloudy throughout the day. 44 degrees for your high temperature. Friday night, 32 degrees for your low temperature, so do bring a jacket if you're headed out. And then on Saturday, again, rain all throughout the day for the most part, especially in the evening hours will be the heaviest, 46 degrees. And your football game forecast, 45 degrees and rain during your game, so do dress appropriately with a poncho and a jacket as it will be quite chilly. And then as we head into Sunday, 37 degrees and rain showers, potentially some lake effect rain snow mix at times. And now Colby has a feature on aviation and weather.
Forecasting the weather has many uses, from using it for agricultural needs to using it to plan an outdoor activity like a picnic in the near future. However, no industry needs a weather forecast more than transportation, and no faction of the transportation sector needs weather forecasts more than aviation. There are several meteorological factors that can negatively impact a flight, and turbulence is among one of the main concerns for pilots during flights, especially during landings. Turbulence can occur due to several factors, including sharply rising and sinking air in a thunderstorm cloud, irregularities in topography, and large differences in temperatures across small areas, for example, a cold front. Airlines such as Southwest employ plenty of meteorologists to assist them in identifying potential weather hazards that can cause delays, cancellations, and mid-flight issues with their flights. These meteorologists use model data in conjunction with TAFs, or terminal aerodrome forecasts, that are updated several times a day, and even more if necessary, by the National Weather Service, in order to identify and alert pilots of these potential hazards. I had the chance to talk with Alex Tomhoff, a meteorology student here at Penn State, about his experience going on a flight to collect some data on methane gas emissions and what meteorological factors were looked at prior to the flight.
In my carbon cycle class, I was able to submit a flight pattern that would go around a couple coal mines in southwestern PA in order to find out some methane emissions from those particular mines. And then with my mesoscale class, we've been launching some balloons to get some atmospheric profiles of the atmosphere to determine if it would be safe for the plane to fly that day, and just some information critical for the pilots to use. So for my particular flight for the coal mines, we'd be flying at pretty low altitudes near the boundary layer, so about 1,000 feet. And in order to do that, we had to have pretty clear conditions so the pilot could have some good visibility while at those low altitudes. Particularly when we were getting ready to fly, about 30 minutes before takeoff, we were concerned about a cloud deck going through the state from west to east. And so what we ended up doing is we switched the flight pattern a little bit to go to the more western coal mine where it had already cleared out. And then we would go to the second coal mine, which is a little bit further east, where it had still been a little bit cloudy right when we took off. But by the time we got out to the site, the clearing had already pushed through most of the western half of the state. So we were able to complete the flight pattern.
I also asked Alex how the weather impacted his flight as they attempted to collect their data.
Yeah, mainly we just wanted to look at where the height of the boundary layer was, because that is what our flight was dependent on. Most of the methane emissions would get capped below the boundary layer, so around 1,000 feet. So most of our methane maximum around the coal mine would be at those lower altitudes. And so we looked obviously at some of the high resolution models to determine that information. But most of the flights going up to them about a day or two in advance, we'd have weather briefings to talk about this stuff and determine which flight would be the most optimal every day. So it's kind of more of a day-to-day thing, and the day before they would have an idea of which flight they want to do the next day, but ultimately it'd be kind of a hit or miss thing if the weather does not cooperate. So again, for most flights, when you take off, you're only in the boundary layer for a little bit, and that's where most of the turbulence is going to be located. But for my flight, we were in the boundary layer for a couple hours, and so it definitely got a bit rough there sometimes, and a headache definitely after being in there for that long. Then on the way back, we actually ran into some rain showers, so it was pretty cool to see them on our forward-facing radar that was equipped with the plane. But then what we found out when we were talking on the radio with some of the other pilots in the area, there was a helicopter which was trying to land, but it was not able to because it was in IFR conditions. So those are instrument flight rules. It's a specific set of guidelines that you have to follow in order to keep everyone safe in the air. And so they called upon our plane, the King Air, to use its weather instruments to find a safe place for this plane to land, or for this helicopter to land.
Whether it's a commercial, military, or data collection mission, all flights require a thorough look into many weather factors in order to determine if a flight can be completed safely. And having access to real-time weather data while mid-flight is also crucial for pilots to make some quick adjustments to keep the plane stabilized. With the improvements to both weather models and communication technology, safety in the aviation field has nowhere to go but up. For Weather or Not, this is Colby McCabe.
And I'm back now with your extended forecast, but let's take a look at your weekend once again. Mostly sunny skies on Friday to start off the weekend, so if you're planning on anything, do it on Friday. And then Saturday, we do have that rain throughout most of the day, and then again into Sunday, showers possible. Will be quite cooler on Sunday, and there is a chance of some snow flurries here and there, especially off towards our north and west. But taking a look at the extended forecast here in State College, we will start the week off cold. We warm up a little bit on Tuesday, and then it's a little bit of a roller coaster as we go through Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, staying below average and staying cool throughout the period. So really no rain showers expected anytime soon here in State College.
Well, it seems like a pretty average week ahead temperature-wise, and we won't really be seeing any storm systems making their way through this Thanksgiving week.
Yes, well, it looks like we'll get rid of most of the precipitation by this weekend, where we'll have a weather system move through, and then it looks like we might even have some lake effect snow on the back end of it.
And speaking of lake effect snow, earlier in the show, we asked you, in general, what are the most favorable conditions for lake effect snow? Is it A, cold air over warm water, B, warm air over cold water, C, warm air over warm water, or D, cold air over cold water? Well, if you guessed A, you are correct. When very cold Arctic air blows over relatively warm lake water, the air just above the water becomes unstable, which means it will rise to form clouds and eventually snow.
The lake also provides plenty of moisture that can fuel heavy snow bands. We often see these conditions early in the winter season before the lakes have frozen over.
Well, it's very fascinating, and I think we learned something here today.
Yep.
But that's all the time that we have here for this episode of Weather or Not. I've been your host, Kristy Steward.
And I've been your forecaster, Andy Moffitt.
Have a great night.